In the tranquil morning light at Whispering Pines Wildlife Sanctuary, 3 bobcat cubs were rescued from the illegal wildlife trade. Tragically, their mother didn't survive. The cubs, now placed in the sanctuary's care, became withdrawn, refusing food and comfort, traumatized by their loss. With conventional methods failing and hope slipping away, a daring idea began to take shape. The sanctuary made an unusual decision to introduce a gentle rescue dog named Daisy as a surrogate mother. Could a rescue dog, a new mother herself, possibly save these wild lives? What began as a desperate measure turned into an extraordinary bond, defying expectations and changing the rules of wildlife rehabilitation. This is a heartwarming tale of an unlikely connection, as Daisy the gentle mutt steps in to nurture the struggling bobcat cubs. Before we begin, please like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story. The morning sun had barely crested the mountains around Whispering Pines Wildlife Sanctuary when Emily Johnson's phone rang. At 58, Emily had spent 3 decades in wildlife rehabilitation and thought she'd seen it all. But the panic in Ranger Mike's voice told her this day would be different. "We've got 3 bobcat kittens, Emily. Tiny things. Confiscated. From someone trying to sell them at a truck stop outside Tucson." His voice broke. "We lost the mother. She was too dehydrated and badly injured." Emily closed her eyes, gripping the phone tightly. Another casualty of the illegal exotic pet trade plaguing Arizona's border regions. "How old?" she asked, already calculating formula ratios and enclosure space in her head. "Maybe 4 weeks. They're not eating. Vet says they're going downhill fast." 30 minutes later, Emily stood in her small examination room, looking down at 3 bundles of spotted fur, each small enough to fit in her palm. Their eyes, blue-gray and unfocused, trembled with fear and hunger. The smallest, a female with a distinct white patch on her ear, gave a pitiful mew that echoed in the sanctuary's quiet air. "Oh, little ones," Emily whispered, gently stroking. The tiny kitten, it recoiled, hissing weakly. "I know you miss your mama, I'm so sorry." For 3 days, Emily tried everything. Bottle feeding was refused. Syringe feeding led to such stress that the male kitten suffered a seizure. The cubs huddled together in their heated enclosure, 3 fragile spots of fur growing dimmer by the hour. On the 4th morning, Emily sat at her desk, head in hand, sanctuary financial reports forgotten. This sanctuary, built on land inherited from her grandfather, was her life's work. The lines on her face told stories of rescue and heartbreak. Her silver hair was always pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail. Her calloused hands had saved countless animals over the years. Her granddaughter Lizzy, a wildlife biology student interning at the sanctuary, knocked gently and entered. "I heard you didn't sleep last night, Gran," she said, setting down a mug of coffee. At 22, Lizzy had Emily's sharp green eyes and practical approach, but her methods leaned on newer research. Emily sighed. "Those bobcat babies won't." "Make it another day. I've tried everything." "Not everything," Lizzy said thoughtfully. "What about Daisy?" Emily looked up. "Daisy? She's barely a year old, and she's a dog." "A rescue dog who just weaned a litter 3 weeks ago," Lizzy countered. "She's still producing milk, and she's the gentlest soul I've met." "It's dangerous," Emily began. "More dangerous than letting them starve?" Lizzy pressed. "You always told me, sometimes you have to try the unthinkable." Emily stared at her granddaughter, remembering something her own mentor once told her. Sometimes nature needs help connecting dots it can't connect on its own. "Get Daisy," she said finally. "But we do this carefully." Daisy had arrived. The previous winter, a pregnant stray found nearly frozen during a rare Arizona snowstorm. A medium-sized dog of uncertain breed, perhaps part retriever, part shepherd, she had soft golden fur and kind, expressive eyes. After giving birth in the sanctuary's small vet clinic, she'd proven to be an exceptional mother, and her puppies had quickly found loving homes. Daisy had stayed on, her calm presence often soothing even the most skittish animals. Emily had planned to rehome her, eventually, but that plan kept getting postponed. They brought Daisy into a room adjacent to the cub's enclosure. Emily sat on the floor cradling the smallest kitten, the one with the white patch, in a towel. The kitten's breathing was shallow, its tiny body cool despite the heated blanket. "Easy, Daisy," Emily said as Lizzy led the dog in. "Easy, girl." Daisy's ears perked up. She approached slowly, tail making tentative wags. Reaching Emily, she lowered her head and sniffed the bundle in the towel. The kitten stirred and gave a weak hiss. Emily held her breath, ready to intervene. But then Daisy whined softly, a sound so similar to when she searched for her puppies, and lay down beside Emily. She extended her head and began to lick the kitten gently. The kitten, rather than recoiling, grew still. Then it turned toward Daisy's fur, drawn to the warmth. "Gran," Lizzy whispered wide-eyed. "Look." Emily, eyes filling with tears, gently placed the kitten closer to Daisy. The dog curled around it and continued grooming, as if it were her own. "Let's try the others," Emily said softly. One by one, the other kittens were introduced, and one by one, Daisy welcomed them. She gathered them against her body and licked each one with motherly care. Within an hour, all 3 kittens were nestled at her belly and began to nurse. "It's not perfect nutrition," Emily murmured, watching them. "We'll still need to supplement, but this connection, this might just save them." Lizzy smiled and squeezed her grandmother's shoulder. "Sometimes the medicine they need most is love. You taught me that." Over the next week, a transformation took place, one that defied all of Emily's expectations. Under Daisy's constant care, under Daisy's devoted care, the bobcat kittens began to thrive. Their tiny frames filled out, coats grew sleek and glossy, and their dull, frightened eyes transformed into bright orbs of playful curiosity. Daisy stayed close at all times, grooming, nudging them back when they wandered too far, even letting out low maternal growls when they got too rough with each other. The staff affectionately named the trio: Patch, the female with the white ear, Scout, the sturdier male, and Rascal, the smaller, more adventurous sibling. Daisy seemed to recognize each by name, responding differently to their unique mews and mischievous antics. Emily, ever the meticulous documentarian, captured everything: photos, videos, pages of notes. She knew this interspecies adoption was something rare, possibly groundbreaking, and could change the way wildlife rehabilitation approached trauma and early development. By 8 weeks, the kittens were on solid food, formula mixed with slivers of suitable meat. Yet they still curled beside Daisy every night, seeking warmth and reassurance. Their play was wildcat through and through, stalking, pouncing, climbing. Daisy observed them with quiet patience, sometimes joining in the fun, more often acting as a quiet harbor when they tired or felt unsure. "Their instincts are intact," Emily noted to Dr. Rivera during one of his scheduled visits. "Despite everything, they're progressing right on schedule." Dr. Rivera, a serious yet kind-eyed man in his 40s, examined Scout with careful hands. "They're in excellent condition. No signs of human imprinting, which is good. But I'm concerned about their emotional attachment to Daisy. These are wild animals, Emily. They can't live with a dog forever." Emily knew he was right, though it pained her. The sanctuary's purpose was always rehabilitation, with the ultimate goal of release. When that wasn't possible, the next step was to place animals in suitable, accredited wildlife centers, not keep them in unnatural conditions. "We'll cross that bridge when we get there," she replied quietly, watching Scout leap from the table and bound straight back to Daisy, who licked his ears in greeting. "Just remember," Rivera said gently, "the longer they stay bonded, the harder the separation will be." By 4 months, the kittens had become the unofficial stars of the sanctuary. Volunteers were enchanted, watching from a respectful distance as the 3 bobcats launched coordinated attacks on leaves, insects, and each other's tails. Daisy remained ever present, less of a mother now, more of a tolerant guardian and playmate. The kittens were changing, baby spots fading, fur thickening, eyes turning from blue to a mature gold. Emily knew the time was near. They had to take the next step. "There's interest from the Mountain Wildlife Preserve in Colorado," Lizzy said one evening, the sun casting gold over the pines as they sat on the porch. "They have a large bobcat enclosure and an excellent education program. Best part? They'll keep all three together." Emily sighed, her heart heavy. "It's a solid option, but we have to start preparing them. They'll need to get used to being without Daisy." The next morning, while the kittens ate, Daisy was quietly moved to Emily's cabin, a quarter-mile from their enclosure. The results were swift and heart-wrenching. The kittens noticed her absence within minutes, pacing, calling, refusing food, scratching doors. The worst, however, was Daisy herself. She scratched and cried outside the cabin door until her paws were raw. "This isn't working," Lizzy said after 4 hours of mounting tension. "Patch hasn't stopped crying." Emily looked through the observation window. Patch sat in the center of the enclosure, head raised, releasing sorrowful, high-pitched cries. "Bring Daisy back," Emily said, voice trembling. "We'll try a slower approach." The reunion was emotional. Daisy bolted into the enclosure, and the bobcats pounced on her, purring, sniffing, curling against her as though terrified she'd vanish again. Emily and Lizzy exchanged worried looks. The bond was stronger than either had realized. Over the next 2 weeks, they attempted gradual separations, short absences, visual contact through fencing, increasing distance in stages. Nothing worked. The kittens wilted with Daisy gone, and Daisy mirrored their distress. "I've never seen anything like it," Emily admitted during a call with Dr. Rivera. "They don't seem to know they're not the same species. They've created their own family." "It's rare, but not impossible," Rivera said thoughtfully. "There are precedents. The question is, what's best for them long term?" The answer came when representatives from the Colorado Preserve visited to assess the bobcats. Thomas Wilkins, their head zoologist, spent a full day observing the group before meeting with Emily. "They're in excellent shape," he said, flipping through notes. "But I'm concerned. A hard separation from the dog could undo months of progress." "So, you won't take them?" Emily asked, equal parts disappointed and relieved. Wilkins paused, then offered something unexpected. "What if we took the dog too?" Emily blinked. "You're serious?" "I am. One of our senior keepers has been looking to adopt a companion animal. Daisy could live with her and still have supervised time with the bobcats. Gradually, we'd decrease contact as they grow more independent." It was an unconventional idea, but the more Emily thought it through, the more sense it made. The preserve had space, expertise, and resources, far beyond what her sanctuary could provide. After discussions with the board and a heartfelt video call with Maria, the keeper in question, Emily agreed. Departure day was bittersweet. Emily and Lizzy personally escorted the animals in a specialized transport van. Daisy, sensing something important, stayed close to the bobcat carriers, occasionally offering quiet whines of comfort. The preserve was breathtaking. Sprawling acreage nestled in the Colorado Rockies, dotted with naturalistic enclosures. Maria greeted them warmly and confidently. Emily liked her immediately. "They'll have 3 acres of forest," Maria explained, leading them to the bobcats' new home. "Plenty of stimulation and room to explore." The kittens, cautious at first, explored their new environment with Daisy nearby. Her presence was all the assurance they needed. By sunset, they were climbing logs and scaling rocks as if they'd always lived there. When Daisy was led away to Maria's cabin that evening, Emily braced herself, expecting a wave of distress. Attempts at separation had always ended in distress, but this time felt different. Maybe it was the fresh mountain air, the new terrain, or simply the passage of time, but the bobcats' reaction to Daisy's absence was noticeably calmer. They called for her a few times, then resumed exploring their new surroundings. "I think they sense this is different," Maria observed. "They know this is where they belong, and that she'll be back." Over the next 6 months, Emily received regular updates and made occasional visits to the preserve. To everyone's surprise, the transition went smoother than expected. The bobcats thrived in their expansive forested enclosure, growing into strong, confident subadults. Daisy settled in beautifully with Maria, adjusting to domestic comforts while still visiting her bobcat family daily. Their relationship naturally evolved. The kittens who once clung to her now welcomed her with enthusiasm, then bounded off to explore or practice hunting skills. By their first birthday, they had become striking young adults. The bond with Daisy had changed, not gone, but transformed from dependence to companionship. Then something happened that no one could have anticipated. 18 months after their move, Maria placed an urgent call. "Scout is sick," she said, her voice tight with concern. "Dr. Mendez thinks it's a bacterial infection. He's not responding to treatment and won't eat." Emily, now 60 and contemplating retirement, felt a wave of dread. She had never stopped caring for the bobcats and still considered them among her most meaningful cases. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough," Maria admitted. "He's isolated himself in the quarantine area. He won't let anyone near, not even me." Emily didn't hesitate. "I'm coming and I'm bringing Daisy." The drive to Colorado felt endless. When Emily arrived, Scout had been ill for 3 days. His condition was deteriorating fast. "He won't take food or oral meds," Dr. Mendez explained as they hurried to the veterinary wing. "And he's too weak for sedation. He needs comfort as much as treatment." Maria was waiting outside the quarantine room, Daisy sitting beside her, alert and tense. Her once sleek muzzle now showed hints of gray, but her eyes were still bright and aware. "She knows," Maria said. "She's been restless since Scout got sick." Through the window, Scout looked fragile, his coat dull, his breathing labored. Emily made the call. "Let her in." They harnessed Daisy for safety and carefully opened the door. She stepped in slowly, nose twitching, ears perked. The moment she saw Scout, she gave a soft, plaintive whine. He raised his head with effort, blinking as if struggling to recognize her. Then a soft sound, something between a chuff and a kitten's mewl. Emily had heard it before, long ago. Daisy moved toward him, ignoring warnings to be cautious. She lay beside him and began gently grooming his face and ears, just as she had when he was a baby. What happened next stunned everyone. Scout, who had refused food for days, allowed Dr. Mendez to approach with broth laced with antibiotics. With Daisy's calming presence, he drank. "Unbelievable," the vet whispered. For the next 3 days, Daisy rarely left his side. She slept curled against him, encouraged him to eat, and gave him something no medicine could. When Patch and Rascal were briefly allowed in, the reunion scene left Emily in tears. 3 grown bobcats reunited with their surrogate mother. Scout's recovery was slow, but sure. By the week's end, he was eating steadily, responding to treatment, and moving with renewed energy. "I've worked in wildlife care for 20 years, Dr. Mendez told Emily, watching Scout take tentative steps around the enclosure, Daisy walking beside him. "I've never seen anything like this bond." "Love," Emily said simply, "doesn't care about species." When Scout was strong enough to rejoin his siblings, Maria suggested something unusual. "Let Daisy go with him, just for today." It was unorthodox, but the director approved. Under supervision, Daisy accompanied Scout back to the main enclosure. Emily stood on the observation deck, heart tight. The reunion was magical. The 3 bobcats came together with soft purrs and gentle head bumps. Then, without hesitation, they surrounded Daisy, each one curled against her, just like in the early days. For a long, quiet moment, wildcats and dog rested together, wild and domestic, predator and protector, bound by something deeper than instinct. "This is why I've done this all these years," Emily whispered to Lizzy, who had flown in after hearing about Scout's illness. "For moments like this, for reminders that healing comes in unexpected forms." In the years that followed, Daisy and her bobcats continued their connection. The cats became fully mature and more independent, but they never stopped greeting Daisy during her visits. Now less mother and more friend, Daisy remained a vital presence in their lives. The sanctuary and the preserve published a joint paper on the case, offering insights into interspecies bonding and rehabilitation techniques. Emily finally retired at 65, often using Daisy's story in her lectures. Sometimes the best medicine isn't a drug or a procedure, she told her students. Sometimes it's a connection, something so simple and fundamental, it breaks the boundaries we think are fixed. And on quiet evenings, Emily still visited the preserve. She would find Daisy, older now but still lively, sitting peacefully near the enclosure fence. The 3 adult bobcats often lounged nearby, family still, against all odds. The unthinkable, Emily would whisper to herself, remembering her early doubts. Sometimes the unthinkable is exactly what's needed. In the golden glow of sunset, wild and domestic, orphan and caretaker, they remained together, a living testament to love without boundaries.